Well, hey there everybody, I just want to take a second really quick and introduce myself. My name is JT Bear and I run the JT Bear Aquaponic channel here on YouTube. Warning, aquaponics is habit forming. At the end of the day, that's what we all want. We want a beautiful aquaponic garden that our friends and neighbors and loved ones can look at and go, wow, I can't believe you did this. Or maybe that's just me. Who knows? Where I went so terribly wrong here, I think, is camera on a stick seems like a really good idea when you're trying to get a picture of something way underwater that you don't want to get into because it's really, really cold. But there was something of a current in that pond, and it was just tugging my stick all over the place, which sounds kind of dirty now that I say it. A lot of people that are just getting into aquaponics are really unfamiliar with the term head height. No, it has nothing to do with how tall you are. It is in fact a measurement of distance between water points. That makes way more sense, doesn't it? Not really. Basically, head height is the distance the water has to travel from the top of your water in your sump tank, if that's where your pump is, to the highest point that it has to pump to. That means how much pressure can it build up to get it up the pipe. In the beginning, when you first add water to your aquaponic system, straight out of the tap, it's going to have some form of chlorine in it. It's almost unavoidable in this day and age. If you don't have it in your tap water, I am so envious of you. There you go. There are 3 of the things you're definitely going to have to look out for and be aware of when you're first starting up your aquaponic garden. And how I dealt with them when they cropped up in mine. There's not a lot of people that are really discussing the downside of aquaponics, and I've had a few different people ask me, you know, what is the downside of aquaponics? Setting up an aquaponic garden is not as simple as digging a hole, dropping in a seed, and hoping for the best. Aquaponic gardens, for the most part, require electricity. That could be seen as a downside. One thing that I found is a bit of a drawback with aquaponics is people start looking at you really funny, you know. So, you're into aquaponics, does that mean you're growing pot? No, it doesn't. I'm growing vegetables. So here's where we sit now, a few adjustments later, and this is pretty much done. As you see, the plumbing on this is very basic. I didn't glue anything, so it can all be adjusted as necessary. A super simple 1 plant, 2 fish type aquaponic system. Wishing it was spring sitting here in my greenhouse. But I have recently learned something about those clay pellets that a lot of us are using for our aquaponic systems that I thought was important and I should share with the whole class. So as many of you are aware, I speak very highly of these things. What can happen with these when they freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw? Unfortunately, because they have frozen and thawed so many times, they fractured. Today's video is the direct result of watching too many other people's videos on YouTube. The first one I tried to make was not out of proper Schedule 40 PVC pipe, and it broke. Schedule 40, it's very important. It's a really silly looking bow, in my opinion. So my Archer's release, while it's fabulous for, you know, shooting for hours and hours in the backyard, it's not really the kind of quick pick up and shoot situation that I'm looking for the kayak. So here I have myself a handy dandy set of nice old beat up work gloves. It's pretty obvious there's a lot of material on here that simply doesn't need to be there. As I mentioned earlier, all we really need is the first 2 fingers on the right hand glove to protect us from the string, and the rest of this is pretty much unessential. Now, as you can see, my hand looks pretty goofy. Glove in hand. Just thought I'd share with everybody what I've been doing as far as the whole PVC bow construction thing. This would be one of my earlier experiments that will undoubtedly not be repeated. Then decided I'd try doing a little bit more shaping work. I used a tea kettle, handy old tea kettle, to provide some of the shape for this. But here, this bright little monster is going to be my fishing bow. As you can see, that's a very, very short brace on there, which is part of why I was looking for the glove to protect my left hand. It's small enough that I can just like rest it on the front of my kayak as I'm paddling along. The next bow I tried making, I did, however, put some twine on the handle. I don't know how well that's showing up. Beautiful, bright, sunny morning, 3rd in a row, so I can actually start to believe that maybe winter is finally on its way out. It is, I think it's the 11th of March today, so we are a whopping 10 days away from spring.
It's a mighty nice quiver you have there, mister.
This quiver here comes to me from Blondeco. It's the most amazing thing. Did you know you can turn a simple piece of PVC pipe into just about anything, as I usually do? And I can just slip that onto my belt. As you can see, I'm prone to doing so. And I've got it right there for wandering around through the yard and hoping the dog doesn't get in the way. Well, with all of this bow making that I've been doing lately, clearly I'm going to need something to shoot at that's not going to get destroyed after putting hundreds upon hundreds of arrows into it. So what I did was I made myself a super cheap arrow trap out of a whole bunch of recycled cardboard waiting to go out of the house. Hey there everybody, it's a beautiful pre-spring day here. Show you what I've made, what I've broken, and a few things I'm experimenting with. Sadly, the little bow that I was going to use for my fishing bow has broken on me. I was inside testing its maximum draw and it snapped. And ideally, takedown, right? This is a prototype, so I just screwed those in place. As a backyard toy when I finally get it finished. And once I build a prototype, then I can think about maybe doing a build along when I have a better clue. What I've got here is I've got some old paint that I mixed up for when I was painting my RC cars, and I've got an old spray bottle. So I'm just going to pour this into here. Alright, now let's see if this will even spray the paint. I'm doing some seed planting today. Do you remember these? We used to use these to hold our floppy disks, and I'm going to just put some soil in there, plant my seedlings in there, and we'll see how this works as a mini greenhouse. Found one of my older, more beat up arrows, because, you know, why break something that still works just fine. I took a large safety pin. It's not so bad. And in this case I can just thread this one on, like so. And now I have two of them. Figure matches are a temporary solution, so I went out and finally got myself a flint striker. Anybody should be able to do this, so I guess I'll find out. So one of the first things I'm going to try this on is some just shredded up bits of really old dried newspaper. Now, I still haven't put in a lot of time with this yet, so not very good. Bear with me. Good spark though. Big tubes of these for $1.25 each at the local dollar store, and see how it lights. Okay, I'm going to say this ranks up there with the standard paper, and it'll get going sooner or later, but it's 10 days into spring here in southern British Columbia, Canada. And let's just see how things are growing. That little solar fan I built is still working. As always, through the camera it looks like it's going a lot slower than it is. Got a kale and a pak choi sitting up there. They seem to be doing just fine. These are the willow cuttings from last September, September 8th, marked on there. Not sure how well they're showing up down in the bottom of the barrel there, but my goldfish survived the winter. How's that lemon balm looking, eh? Another dozen or so plants started in the back corner, looking very happy. Mint and aquaponics is a beautiful combination. I'm doing some quick willow transplants because I figured they deserve better than those solo cups. So here we've got those 4 little willow cuttings. Let's just take a look and see what these roots look like. Okay, that's 2 of them done. Let's take a look and I'll show you what I found. There are an awful lot of plants coming up here. I'll have to check back and see exactly the date I planted those, but it seems to me that worked out pretty well. It's my little gnome garden. Since this is a rental, it's portable. Let's take a look. This portion of this area gets the best light, so I figured, why not, right? So there's the gnomes. For the record, that's Carl on the left, Annie on the right. So I had a lot of volunteer plants last year, like tomatoes and such. I do love my volunteer plants. The 19th day of spring locally, and I thought we'd just take a quick look around the greenhouse aquaponics, see how it's doing. I don't think I've ever had leaves this big on my lemon balm before. going on 40 degrees. Be there in no time. It's not even 10 o'clock yet. So, better leave the door open. Oh, I do wish you could smell through YouTube. That stuff is wonderful. I got all of these mints when I first went crazy on the aquaponics. We had some 11 varieties of mint at the time, I think. Came into the greenhouse this morning to check on how things were doing, and I noticed some very unusual behavior in my fish. Not entirely sure he should be involved in this little breeding triplet, but he seems to want to play. But I'll be darned if that doesn't look like eggs stuck in the string algae on their coffee can cave. Today is a very happy day for me. I am proud to announce I am finally bringing strawberries back to my aquaponic system. Everbearing. Matures in a continual crop. Planting and transplanting has got to be one of my favorite qualities of an aquaponic garden. Something new we've added to the garden this year. We just picked up these 2 berry bushes. I noticed there are a few fruits already starting to form on this one. Produces large blue berries which taste like a cross between a raspberry and a blueberry. First off, let's take a look at this haskap berry. According to what I was looking at, this is in fact too full. Alright, so now that I've got this elevated, let's just take one last look at it before I start hacking away at it. Looks like I've got a couple potential clones on there. Alright, so I've taken all of the fish out of the sump tank, and I clearly have some eggs on that Folger's cave. So we got a few different options on places we may have baby fish pop up. Maybe some of these will produce. We'll see. Just don't know if they're fertilized. It's been about a year since Chox, Squeaker, and I savagely divided the rhubarb the way we did. That pop bottle watering system is still working fantastic. As you can see, the rhubarb is doing fantastic. So here we have my 2 collections of cuttings from the honeyberry bushes, here to try and root some honeyberries. But I'm thinking in that back corner is going to be one of their best chances to root. Sitting in water since I cut them off the bush. So I've narrowed it down to 6 here. Just tuck them in and hope for the best. Today is the 20th of April, and I thought we'd just take a quick look around, show you really briefly how everything is doing. How about that lemon balm, the unofficial plant of JT Bear as it's been put? Here are those tomato starts from the seeds I saved, rubbing them against a paper towel. I just thought I would show everybody kind of how my aquaponic system is put together, how it works, and you know, maybe some slides of how my aquaponic system used to be back before I started the channel. What is aquaponics? And the bacteria convert the fish waste, consisting of my main fish tank here, a sump tank here, and 2 grow beds. Gave me some very strong opinions about pond liners, I tell you, that's for sure. The water is split as soon as it comes up. As you can see, the lemon balm really enjoys being right by that outlet. Alright, so there's really not a whole lot visually going on with this particular clip, but for those of you who've been watching my updates, I actually got some fish fry. I look at any of these guys here. So some of them seem to be doing quite well. They're very much enjoying hanging out in that cord bundle. Well, there are a couple that seem to be interested in the food, but kind of caught up in the current, so we'll see. Alright, well, I hope you can hear me over the pouring rain, but here's just a quick little update on those goldfish fry. There are surprisingly quite a few of them still alive in there. They're kind of hiding out at the moment, but being me, I've set it up with an aquaponic system, so I've got air stone in the bottom of my pipe there. You know, it's kind of funny, some of the stuff I learned by accident out here in the greenhouse. Now, I can't honestly say that this was something I was trying or working with. This just kind of happened. For some reason, can't resist the urge to check out what's in the hole. If you're looking for a way to trap these guys, accidental discovery, but perhaps it'll be useful to somebody.
You've been busy.
I have.
Oh my goodness.
And rearrange the greenhouse.
Okay, these look even way bigger out here than they did in there.
It's fascinating, but I totally agree. There's some very mucky stuff in there.
It looks pretty gnarly.
That garbage can's never going to be the same.
It looks so naked.
Well, it's taking a while, but I'm slowly getting 2 beds worth of plants into 1 bed. Which is good, because it started to rain. So this poor lemon balm has spent 2 days or so out of the aquaponic system and desperately needs to be trimmed up and put back in before it dies. I am checking to make sure that I've got some new growth below the point where I'm cutting it, because that'll help me get a nice bushy plant. Alright, let's find out what that weighs, shall we? 198 grams of lemon balm. Good deal. Before I get started on what I'm doing here today, I just want to say really quickly, thank you so much to all of my viewers, you guys who contribute in the comment section. I've learned so much through your feedback. I don't think my garden would have made it anywhere near as far as it has if you guys hadn't been as helpful as you have been. So it's really awesome. Thank you so much, and let's take a look at what I'm doing. Something must be done. I'd like some of these guys to survive. So here's the plan. Well, first things first, it may not be much of a biofilter, but if I sink the air stone underneath the plant and just set it in there, that should still work at least as well as it was. Here I've got some asparagus. We got this from the nursery, it was all dried. Brought it in to plant it, and then we probably forgot about it. Kind of spread them out a little bit so it looks like an octopus in there, which is nowhere near as easy as they made it look. I am prepared to learn. Now this is planted way closer together than anything I saw, but whatever. This is all about learning and experimenting. Can't really see it very well against the grass there, but it's got a very ferny type leaf to it. It seems to be coming up fairly well. So here is that asparagus in the spring of its 2nd year. Doesn't look too terribly impressive looking straight down on it, but if you angle the bin a little bit, working on a little project. Now this is not a lot of fun, and it's a great example of a couple of hard lessons I've learned in my aquaponics. So I thought I would share it, and maybe you guys can avoid going through what I'm doing today. So I think the major lesson here is some sort of filter, settlement tank, swirl filter, you know, something has to be built, and I have to leave it in place all year round because that is nasty and I'm not enjoying cleaning through it. Alright, so because of this I've clearly got to do something right now. So as a lot of you may have come to know, Folgers coffee cans are kind of like my duct tape of aquaponics. So of course, my really simple and only temporary, I promise, solids filter solution involved a coffee can. So here you can see just how basic this setup really is, and I've finally got a waterfall. Is that going to stop everything? No. Is that going to stop a lot of things? Oh, I think so. That's a lot of sunflowers. Might have overplanted there. So here is my coffee can solids filter and waterfall feature, day 2, okay? Let's take a look at how it's doing. I can hardly ever see the fish that far down, this clearly in this tank. So here you can see what I've done. I filled this one with media, just some clay pebbles, some rocks, whatever. So I'm setting up the other half of my aquaponic system. This time though, I'm setting this up as a shallow water culture. I'm going to cut some planks to fit along the ledges there. So for those of you who have been interested in a better look at the black plastic bed, here you go. This is the best chance you'll ever have to see it. Anyway, let's start with the Mad Science Arrival, my newest project in the greenhouse. So, based on a conversation that kind of happened over my video, The Accidental Pill Bug Trap, there seems to be a discrepancy as to whether or not pill bugs are a good thing, a bad thing, composter, or devourer of unsuspecting plants. Hasn't been the greatest weather for working outside with a table saw, so it's gotta wait, you know, safety first. However, Folgers cans everywhere. This wisteria here is probably about as old as those grapes, and it produces just some of the most amazing flower clusters every year. After a great deal of rummaging around, I was lucky enough to find these 2 wisteria seeds that appear to be intact. Went online to double check, and sure looks like they're wisteria seeds. Just fill this up with some aquaponic medium, probably halfway, and get right back to you. Alright, so for better or for worse, this is what I'm doing. I thought I'd show you how I'm going to try and make those wooden rafts for my shallow water culture, I guess, aquaponic system. Alright, so now that I've dealt with the annoying sound of the hole saw, I'm just going to sand up all the edges, you know, take care of tidiness issues. Time to start playing with the liquid rubber. Anywho, this gives us a good opportunity to see how this Russian red kale are doing. You ask me, that's some pretty good growth. It's been, what, just over a week since I put these in. This is my first experience with Russian red kale, but I don't care, that still looks like some pretty good growth to me. So I am really not that fond of the styrofoam because of the way it breaks on the edges and those beads get in there. But if it breaks, you're still left with that. It's been just under a month since I gave up on hatching them in the main tank and put them into that Folgers can to keep an eye on them. I think that was the 16th of last month. And the spawning for these guys would have been the 10th of April. Getting there, still looking alright-ish, I guess. Don't really know. You can see I've got a few kale planted in there now, and got one of the tricolor sage from the aquaponics planted in there. It doesn't seem to be doing terribly well. This lemon balm, on the other hand, pardon me, this is the bee balm. This bee balm is doing fantastic. Got a bunch of those Juliet hybrid tomatoes here, hardening off, getting ready to plant along the front of the gnome garden. I don't know what to call this other than dirty aquaponics. So here we have 3 herbs that Chox got me for the aquaponic garden that I still have not put in because there's so many changes going on. They're probably better off in these little tiny containers, really. But anyway, and here we also have a tray where these seem to fit quite well. And I'm letting the wicking action take place so that these can stay well watered. And I've had a request to kind of review my plumbing, and I figured why not, since it changes so frequently around here. This one bed is incredibly simple. I am really very happy with that, although for those of you who follow my channel, you know it will not stay this simple for long. Changes will be coming. Strawberries and aquaponics, don't even get me started. Got some dirty aquaponics going on there. Well, isn't this an unusual collection of things? I saw this in a demonstration, not entirely sure I believe it, but if this works, then I am absolutely, completely, 150% sold on whether or not I'll be using this in my systems. Did some basic sealing around the seams. It's already coming up a little bit on me, but I'll push that down again. That does apply quite nicely with this little foam brush. Just taking a look at the flood and drain bed in my aquaponic garden, and in particular I'm taking a look at the tomatoes. Now, last year my tomatoes got kind of insane. These are the ones that are supposed to make those big beef hybrid tomatoes, or those fried green tomatoes, so these need to do really, really well. and basically just, hey, does anybody else have any advice for me on how to make these super productive? Since I seem to grow them really well, I'd like them to be productive as well. Okay, for the record, I know this is a total waste of time and resources, but you know, curiosity is what it is, and I'm one of those people. Curiosity must be satisfied. This feels like possibly one of the most ridiculous things I've ever done, especially in my greenhouse. It's hard to pick up anything but glare on the camera right now, but so far it all looks pretty good. Quick tool tip for you today, brought to you by Lazy Dog Productions apparently. Many of you may be like me and not in a position to necessarily buy brand new, or for that matter even complete tools. It's one of those things that well, seems blonde-co simple once you take a look at it. But a lot of folks don't know how to make a fence for their table saw, so I figured I'd throw it out there. Do you remember last year when I discovered I had snails in my aquaponic bed? You know, it turned out not necessarily a good thing, some concern of liver flukes and things like that. Well, now I have a squatter in my sump tank. Anybody else out there got snails in their sump tank? You want to comment one way or the other? I thought about it. I was going to move them inside, but then it gets pretty warm in this greenhouse during the days, and this water warms up pretty good. So I decided just to leave them out here for now. There's been a lot of discussion about cloning these suckers. I have decided I'm going to take the 6 largest and do that. Ah, wisteria. Seriously, just such a beautiful plant. Oh, look at that. I have a wisteria shoot. That's wonderful! 10 days to sprout a wisteria seed in my aquaponic garden. It has been 6 days since I filled this. Let's just take a look. That looks like some pretty dry dirt to me. I don't see any signs of water damage around the outside of this. As a waterproofing agent, this passes. Hello everybody, as promised I am once again at the Penticton Japanese garden. This is kind of a project put together between the city of Penticton and our sister city, whose name I forget at the moment. So the fish were pretty curious as to the camera when I first dropped it in the water. Sadly, that effect didn't really last that long, but you know, they got some really nice koi in that pond. For anybody who was thinking my sump tank was kind of dirty, you know, I offer you this pond. That one there's got some lovely fins on it. So as you can see, I wasn't kidding, those tomatoes are doing fantastic and are already starting to produce some flowers for me. So that's wonderful and exciting news. They're a little on the insane side. Push these aside for the moment though, and those peppers seem to be doing pretty good for peppers in my neighborhood. A month later, it'll look like this again, so whatever. I'm really quite pleased with the Seascape variety that I've chosen this time around. It's that lemon balm in the dirty aquaponics over there, sage. I'm gonna move the fish fry out of this tote because I'm seeing less and less of them alive, really, and I just want to keep a better eye on them. So I am going to move them inside after all. This is the first little beta tank I'm going to move them into. Kind of cute, not very big. With any luck, it should be a little easier to see these guys in that tank. Well, when all is said and done, I went from 73 to 6. I just got a phone call from a good friend of mine who works at the local Art Naps nursery, and he's telling me the koi are in. So I finally get some for my garden system. It's only like 3 blocks away from the house, so I figure I'll just walk. So here we have some of their koi that I'm not allowed to take home. Very nice pond setup they have here though. it's official. Today I have launched the fundraiser campaign, and you know, you're free to share it on any of the various social networks that you can put it on. I know pretty much we're all in the same position, but if you could at least share it, that would be fantastic. And you know, as a side note, as you can see, the new koi are loving life but terrified of the camera. Thought we'd just take a quick look at the new koi and the floating bed before I disassemble it. Well, for now anyway. I will definitely be making use of floating beds in the larger Clean Valley Farms scenario. Here we can see that the French tarragon is doing quite well. A lot of new growth since I put that into the dirty aquaponics system. Same with the thyme. As we can see, the lemon balm doing just great. Apparently this grows as a weed in like France. Prop this up, take a look at the underside. I'd say that's some pretty excellent root growth. Now these are the big beef steak hybrids, I think. So that pinching the suckers definitely seemed to be a good idea. So that's good, I'm getting kind of that staggered effect. Maybe should have plucked the suckers a little bit higher on this one plant. We found a whole little woodland full of what we believe to be those Russian olive trees. Right here is a nice little example. And over here we have another couple. And then Chox found these two right here. So we should be able to bring at least one of these home today. Nice to see them getting a little more active and comfortable in their environment. I don't recall exactly how long ago I set this up, but this is sadly the first time I have changed it out. But wow, clearly it's catching some of the debris. Well, that may not be perfect, but it's definitely better. So here you can see I've just got the one scrubby pad on its side, and I tucked all 6 of these scrubbies in the back here where the water is going to be pouring out. In review, I still say this works pretty well, but I probably should have chosen something with a flat front for the waterfall to come out of. Sustainability and affordability both kind of have reuse it in common, don't they? First off, like I've said so many times, I desperately need to add some iron to this system. So since I've had a few questions about what I use, I thought I would show you exactly what I'm doing there. Now that I've made a little space, I'm just going to pour this right into the water. Doing a little rearranging on this flood and drain bed as well. Want to move this one tomato over to the corner where the strawberries are and perhaps spread them along the middle. Okay, well, I had to get a shot of this really quickly. Look what that tomato root has done in that tiny little space that it had available. Just thought I'd do an update on a couple of things in the aquaponics system really quickly here. First off, I want to show you this kale. Not that long ago I did add some iron to it because I was very concerned. As you can see, the new growth since the iron has been added is just as I said. It's much more vibrant in color. I was thinking it was going to be a Highlander situation, but it looks more like David and Goliath. Got one very large goldfish fry in there and one not exactly large goldfish fry in there. Who knows, maybe someday they might even make it into the big tank with the other fish.